degrees. So 33 books is all you need at this point. So I'm going to drop it off real quick. One book, Psychopathic Racial Personality by Bobby Wright. African Personality in America by Kobe Cambone. Chains and Images of Psychological Slavery by Naeem Akbar. You got Critical Lessons in Slavery by John Henry Clark. As a matter of fact, Critical Lessons in Slavery is actually the editor of the Critical Lessons in Slavery by John H. Clark. Falsification of African Consciousness, and that is by the master that we were just speaking about, and that is by Amos Wilson himself. Let the Circle Be Unbroken by Marimba Ani. Now, Marimba Ani is the one who wrote about the Dogon, and she wrote the book called Let the Circle Be Unbroken, but she also wrote another book called, give me the name, Urugu. Okay. Get the book Urugu. That excellent book, breaking down the psyche of the white man. Another book is To Be a Slave, and I believe that's by Julius Lester. All right. Some of them I can remember the authors. I just had to remember when I'm putting them down. This is a new book. This is pretty much a book that is a lot more contemporary about what's happening in Africa. It's called Silent Terror. And if you brothers and sisters out there want to put some books up that you all want to sell, that you all want to get out there, and you want to push to the brothers and sisters to have this book called Silent Terror, A Journey into Contemporary African Slavery by a man named Samuel Cotton. Get that book. And another book that's been written by a man named Adam Hochschild, and I think he might be a Rothschild, but he just changed his first name, his last name to Hochschild. That's Hochschild. But he wrote a book called King Leopold's Ghost, and it's a story of slavery from an African's perspective. In other words, he knows that most of the books on slavery and the books on African history, when I was reading through it, it had to do with African people being autopsied by white people. So what he was doing is he's putting into this book all the stuff that was happening with black people and what they were saying, the stories of the griots in the African communities and what they suffered through when they went through slavery. Another book, Black People in the British Empire, which is a good book by Peter Fryer, and that book was out in about 1988. Another book called Black England. This is an excellent book because it begins to tell you where all of the cathedrals that were built up in England were built up by the Moors, by the blacks that were there at the time during the slavery. They were the ones that brought most of their technology from Africa to England and start building up all those giant cathedrals that you saw in England. Of course, The Destruction of Black Civilization by Chancellor Williams. Excellent book because at the end of that book they have a blueprint for how Africans can start to think and to act so that they could come into their own self-determination. A History of Southern Africa by Eric Walker. I believe that was a book that was put out, and I saw that in a library. It might be available at the Schomburg. It was written about 1724. And it's got a lot of information having to do with how the Boers came through from Germany and what they brought with them, and how England also was part of that whole when they got together with Germany, because at the